Okay, so this morning I'm talking to Shannon Loughnane, who's about to go for a walk. When are you off, Shannon?
On 20th of April, Easter Saturday.
On a long walk, though. How far?
It's about 700 k's.
So that's not to the corner shop, Shannon, that's all the way to Canberra.
It is, yeah.
Why on earth are you doing this?
I just thought it would be fun, I've got 25 days to kill, so... No, I'm doing it to protest decades of inaction on climate change.
Right. So you're walking to Canberra to draw attention
Mm-hmm.
to the paralysis, really, at our federal government level on climate change.
That's right.
What would you like to see done?
Well, there's a couple of things. We've got a petition going. First and foremost, for me, the declaration of a climate emergency. The IPCC has said we've got 12 years left to really start curbing emissions and to stem the worst of climate change. So I think declaring that we're in an emergency and prompting all levels of society, government, industry, to start acting like we are is a very important step. We're also calling for a rapid transition to 100% renewable energy across the country, as well as net zero emissions by 2030, and a couple of other measures as well.
Good.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about zero emissions, most people will think about coal and electricity generation, but of course it's more than that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So electricity is a really big chunk of the carbon emissions in this country, but there's also agriculture needs a big reform. So we fell a lot of trees in this country, which are carbon sinks, so they release carbon emissions. Large-scale agriculture also erodes the soil, and there's a lot of carbon in soil that also gets released. A lot of food wastage, all that sort of stuff.
So those two things, food rotting in landfill underground where it doesn't have oxygen, produces methane.
That's right, yeah.
And you mentioned agriculture, so sheep and cows burp out a lot of methane.
That's true, yeah, and methane's a lot more potent a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide, so it's very dangerous when methane's being released at the levels that it is.
Yeah, okay. So you'd like to see action on agriculture, food waste disposal.
Yeah.
What should we be doing with food waste?
Well...
Eating it.
Eating it primarily,
Yeah.
not overproducing. There's things we can do in the level of stockists and shops. They could be having more generous cosmetic standards so that we're using all the food that we are producing, that it's not going to landfill. Then we can compost. That's also a way for it not to be rotting in landfill and releasing that methane. There's a whole variety of things we could be doing to revolutionise what we're doing with food, because I've heard that all told, holistically, food and food production, transport, wastage, all these sort of things account for about 25% of global emissions, which is a huge, huge chunk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we clearly need a lot of action. So in Victoria, brown coal accounts for about half of our emissions. So we have the dirtiest electricity system in Australia because of our brown coal. But also, starting today, I think, will be burns in logging coops. So after chopping down the wonderful carbon stores of the mountain ash growing east of Melbourne, east of Toolangi, that area, they burn what's left over, which is about 50% of the biomass is left over, and put it up into the atmosphere in a high temperature fire. So we're going to start seeing some smoky days in April and May as a result of that. So that's, I guess, something you'd like to change.
Yes, of course, yeah. There's also the transport sector is a huge issue as well. So I'd be looking to electrifying our transport sector and having that sector then powered by renewable energy, so we're not just pumping a whole bunch of carbon into the air from transport that is electrified but not renewably powered.
Now that's another reason for walking to Canberra rather than flying.
Absolutely, yeah. I was very inspired by Greta Thunberg, who we all are no doubt familiar with, who took the train to Davos, to the World Economic Forum, instead of flying. Just setting an example about low carbon means of travel. And there's no more low carbon means than just using your own body.
It feels to me like there's been a lack of, not just a lack of action on climate change, but a lack of conversation, as though it's a topic you don't talk about. But suddenly that's burst out like a dam wall bursting. And this year it's broken through, and people have accepted now that not only is it okay to talk about, we want to see action.
Yeah, which is really, really exciting. It does feel like the upcoming federal election will be the climate election, which a lot of people are talking about.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. And I think that sort of explosion of conversation is reflective of the nature of the climate science and and climate change, which is that it doesn't happen incrementally. It happens in bursts, and we see huge changes. And if we don't do as much as we can to abate carbon emissions, we're going to start seeing those explosions in extreme weather events and food scarcity and all these sort of things, because the natural tipping points in the environment will suddenly unlock all of these carbon emissions that will just make the rates of global warming just explode.
Yeah.
So I think that sort of upturn in conversation is really reflective of the extremes we're starting to see in weather. And
So you're taking some messages to Canberra,
yes,
and when do you set off on your walk?
on April 20th.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's Easter Saturday from memory.
It is, yeah.
Good. All right. Well, you go with all of our support.
Thank you.
If people want to support you or help you, what should they do?
Well, there's a couple of things you can do. The biggest and most important one is to download the petition off the website. The website's
We'll put a link in the comments.
great.
on this
Yeah,
video.
yeah.
Yep.
It's myextremelylongwalk.com. To download the petition, start circulating that in your local community with your family and friends. Because I'm just one person and I'm trying as best as I can to get it out there, but I need your help. And then those petitions can be mailed back to an address in Canberra, which is on the website, and we're going to collect them all up and deliver them to the House of Representatives for consideration.
Good.
Also, you can attend, if you're within the Melbourne region, you can attend the kick-off event on April 20th at Coburg Lake.
What time?
At 9 o'clock, bright and early, because I've got to get going, because it's a long day of walking. But if people wanted to walk with me on that day for a part of the journey, that would be really appreciated. And there's also a few more stops across my journey where I'm still looking for community hosts. So if you know anyone in Bowna, in New South Wales, Wontagong or Rosewood, those are the last 3 spots that I need accommodation. So if those are ringing any bells, get in touch.
Fantastic. All right. Well, Shannon, thank you very much. You go with all our support.
Thank you very much.
Hope it's a great success.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.